Welcome to World History. Yesterday we looked through the developments in Central America and the effects of European arrival there. Today we're going to move south and talk about the great South American empire of the Andes, the Inca peoples. Most noteworthy for their amazing ability to overcome geographical challenges, as we clearly see here in these two pictures. We're going to talk about some of the accomplishments of the Inca Empire and then look at how European arrival was absolutely devastating for them as well. So your objectives for today, you should be able to evaluate the accomplishments of the Inca Empire, identify the factors that led to the downfall of the empire, and then compare and contrast the fates of the two great American empires. So the Inca Empire, unlike the Aztec Empire, covered an amazing geographical area, all the way along the coast of South America, as you can see here. Covering this long of an area, especially over very difficult geographical terrain, as much of this area of South America is relatively mountainous, required amazing geographical feats and are some of the Inca Empire's greatest accomplishments. It's also noteworthy that all of this was done without large domesticated animals, because the only animals that they had access to were llamas and alpacas, who, although you can use them for some things, are not as useful as like horses or oxen for carrying large loads. And so most of the stuff that the Inca did was using human power as opposed to animal power, which is amazing that they were able to accomplish what they did. The Inca infrastructure was unmatched. The Inca were known especially for building roads, specifically two parallel roads that went down the entire length of the empire, linking together their main cities of Machu Picchu and Cuzco. This allowed them to move resources because, of course, the geography is somewhat challenging, and so they used terraces in order to grow grain, and then they could move these grain along these roads. And it was also used for information. They had a system of messengers who would run messages tied in these sort of knotted cords all the way from one area to the other, from one end of the empire to the other, handing off the message from runner to runner to ensure an uninterrupted flow of information, which allowed the kings of the Inca Empire to govern and to pass laws and to control many parts of this incredibly vast territory. The other hallmark of the Inca Empire is they had very advanced medicinal and medical techniques. They used many different types of plants for healing and medicines. And were pretty adept at curing many diseases. But most noteworthy, the Inca had developed a type of brain surgery that allowed them to solve some of the problems involving brain swelling and things like that, to remove pressure in order to solve and get around some pretty serious medical conditions. And so having developed brain surgery at this point in history was very, very noteworthy and stands as one of the greatest accomplishments of the Inca people. But for all their accomplishments, the virulence and destruction of European diseases were one of the things that started the beginning of the end for the Inca Empire. Specifically, the spread of smallpox came down to the Incas through Spanish traders who were sort of exploring the coast of South America. And just like smallpox crushed the populations of the Caribbean with the Great Dying and contributed to the fall of the Aztec Empire, smallpox started to devastate the Inca people. And by the time the main Spanish conquistadors started arriving, the king of the Inca had died, and his two sons had started a civil war for control of the throne. And so because Atahualpa here and Huascar were fighting each other, their forces were divided, and they really struggled to push back against Spanish encroachments. And the Spanish were able to use this division in order to divide and conquer the Inca people. This destruction was heralded by Francisco Pizarro, who basically stole Cortez's playbook and then just played out the same story 7 years later, except the Inca Empire instead of the Aztec Empire. Pizarro used the brothers' civil war against them, first backing one brother and then turning on him and backing the other. He then captured the remaining brother and held him hostage, demanding that the Incas give him a room full of gold or else he would kill the emperor. Once the Inca had filled a room full of gold, he killed the emperor anyway, married the emperor's wife, and then declared himself emperor of the Inca Empire. And so just like that, a second great empire laid low, with a Spaniard taking control of the top rung of society and attempting to continue to rule the empire without anything really changing. This eventually led to the collapse of the Inca Empire because, first, Pizarro was killed by one of his associates, and so here's the assassination of Pizarro in this picture. And then the empire itself collapsed into war, as multiple different of Pizarro's lieutenants tried to seize control and then were assassinated in turn. And so the power structure of the Inca Empire fell apart, and South America fell into sort of regional control with no centralized empire anywhere to be found. And so it wasn't until a few years later, when more Spanish troops arrived, that they were able to consolidate and take over South America, because the Inca Empire and all sort of semblance of organized, centralized government had now been destroyed. And so that brings us back to our objectives. Hopefully you can talk a little bit about the accomplishments and why the Inca Empire is noteworthy, identify the factors that led to the downfall, this one's kind of easy, and then compare and contrast the falls of the Aztec and the Inca empires. When we come back, we'll start to look at South America and Central America in the aftermath of these brutal conquests, and look at the development of European society in the Americas.